Part 56. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 551. In the single ward at the end of the corridor. Zhang Lingzi pushed the door open and walked in. She saw Pei Zinyuan lying on the hospital bed as if he was having a nightmare. He closed his eyes tightly and waved his hands and feet while shouting something vaguely. The little nurse on the side was busy comforting her to prevent the needle on the back of her hand from being accidentally pulled off. When he noticed someone coming in, he immediately felt like a savior had arrived. "Help me, she's about to pull the needle off." Zhang Lingzi put her bag and mobile phone into Shen Yunqing's arms, walked quickly to the bed, and restrained Pei Zinyuan's limbs that couldn't stop moving. "Zinyuan, I'm Zhang Lingzi, don't move. Don't be afraid." The irresistible force on his limbs, coupled with the familiar strong and soft voice that entered his ears irresistibly, Pei Zinyuan's struggle gradually became lighter, while his eyelids trembled slightly, struggling to escape from the nightmare. "Come to your senses." The nurse immediately checked that the patient's needle had not moved out of place. Then she breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the visitor. "Thank you, Zhang Lingzi." Seeing that Pei Zinyuan was no longer struggling, Zhang Lingzi let go of her hand. Seeing that the nurse on the side knew about her, she simply raised her hand and took off her sunglasses and mask. I, the little nurse clenched her fists excitedly, wanting to say something but holding back. "Miss Pei's fever has gone away, and she should wake up soon." Zhang Lingzi nodded towards her. "Thank you very much." You're welcome, you're welcome. I'll go out first. If you need anything, just ring the call bell and call me." She waved her hands and feet and walked towards the door, passing Shen Yunqing, who was holding Zhang Lingzi's bag and mobile phone. Beside him, the footsteps involuntarily paused, and he couldn't help but take a sneak glance, and then he suppressed the urge to take a breath and quickly left the ward. "Mom, she seems to have taken the drug for real." The female policeman brought the person there and stood at the door but did not go in. Seeing that Miss Pei, who had fainted in the corridor in the morning, woke up, she called out to Miss Zhang, "Sister Zixi," and hesitated before retreating, ready to see if Han Jiaoqiao, who was lying next door, had woken up. "Sister Zixi, why are you here?" Pei Zinyuan was helped to sit up and saw Shen Yunqing standing behind Zhang Lingzi, and her face became more embarrassed. "Mr. Shen is here too." "Why is your phone turned off?" Zhang Lingzi asked, moving a stool to sit on the edge of the bed and looking at Pei Zinyuan's cracked lips. "Drink some water." Pei Zinyuan licked his lips and nodded. Then he touched the cell phone placed under the pillow and clicked, "The battery is out." Zhang Lingzi stretched her hand back. Shen Yunqing had just put his bag on the cabinet aside and was going to pour water. When he saw this, he handed over his mobile phone first. Zhang Lingzi took the phone and clicked on the chat history in the group, then handed it to Pei Zinyuan. "Let's take a look." Pei Zinyuan then closed her mouth that could not help but open her mouth and lowered her head to look at the screen of her mobile phone. When she saw someone talking about what happened last night in the group, even if she had already learned more details from the police, she still couldn't help but tremble all over. "Sister Zixi, Jiao must have been bullied. How could those people be so bad? And me. In fact, after I came back from Liangchuan, I noticed something was wrong with Jiao's state. If I had cared more about Jiao and told her to come back when I received her reply, what happened next would not have happened. Why didn't I insist on it at that time?" Zhang Lingzi held her shoulders that could not stop shaking, and when Pei Zinyuan raised her head to look over, she met her eyes and said in a deep voice with a firm tone as if she were recounting facts, "Zinyuan, this is not your fault. If anything happens to Han Jiaoqiao, who of us will, you don't even want to, but it's not your fault, you don't need to blame yourself." Pei Zinyuan stared blankly at the person in front of him until tears burst down his face. There was a knock on the door. Shen Yunqing put the water glass on the bedside table and turned to open the door. The policewoman stood at the door. Han Jiaojiao is awake. Pei Xinyuan almost rolled out of bed. When his feet hit the ground, his knees softened and he almost fell to the ground. Zhang Lingzi quickly caught him with his quick eyes and hands. Let's go and have a look, it's right next door. When she saw that her whole body, even her neck, was fixed, and the exposed skin was covered with large scrapes and contusions. Han Jiaojiao, who was lying on the bed unable to move and could only barely blink, would have been there if she hadn't been leaning on Zhang Lingzi. Pei Xinyuan couldn't stand. Standing beside the hospital bed were several doctors who learned that the injured person had woken up and came to check on the situation. When they saw the family members of the injured person coming in, they said, "This is the patient's injury report. The head injury is minimal, and the lower limbs are mainly injured more seriously. He recovered well in the later period and still has the ability to take care of himself, which is a blessing among misfortunes." From the doctor's point of view, the 6th floor is nearly 20 meters high. As long as he doesn't die on the spot, he is lucky. But now even Pei Xinyuan can't accept the situation, let alone Han Jiaojiao herself. Pei Xinyuan stood beside the hospital bed and did not dare to reach out to touch his friend lying on the bed, for fear that the person would break if he touched it even slightly. Jiao. The ward door, which was originally ajar, was knocked again. The policewoman standing guard at the door opened the door and frowned when she saw the person coming. Zhang Lingzi turned around and saw the person coming. Wearing a crisp and elegant suit, with meticulous hair, and a pair of shrewd eyes under the golden eyes, he also holds a black briefcase in his hand, showing his elite style, and his posture looks like he is about to negotiate. Looks a bit like Hezu, whom I haven't seen for a while. The other party also revealed his identity as soon as he opened his mouth. I was entrusted by Mr. Bai. I heard that Miss Han has regained consciousness, so I came here to visit. When Han Jiaojiao heard the 3 words Mr. Bai, even though she couldn't move her whole body, her cheeks still trembled uncontrollably. Seeing her like this, Pei Xinyuan panicked. He quickly turned around and shouted at the man who was walking this way, "Stop, go away, cats cry and mice pretend to be compassionate. Who wants you to come and visit with fake kindness? Get out na." The man had no choice but to stop with a helpless expression, but he still had to say what he needed to say. After all, he came with a mission. Mr. Bai also felt deeply sorry for Miss Han's misfortune. He only regretted that he was not able to rescue her in time. Hold on. He wanted to come to visit in person, but he couldn't get away from something important at the moment. He took out another bank card from his breast pocket and put it on the table next to him. "This is Bai. Sir, I hope Miss Han can recover soon." This was said euphemistically, but everyone present could understand that this was to be settled with money. Pei Xinyuan was so angry that his teeth were chattering. Without even thinking about it, he picked up his bank card and threw it in the man's face. "Who wants your dirty money?" A mark was scratched on the left side of the man's face by the sharp edge of the bank card. The eternal smile on his face paused. "I have brought Mr. Bai's kindness to Miss Han and this Miss Pei. Please calm down and think about it carefully." After saying this, he turned around and prepared to leave without even looking at the bank card that fell on the ground. "Stop." The man who was about to pull the door handle paused and looked back in surprise. "Once you say what you need to say in front of the police, your task will be completed. He, as an assistant, cannot get involved in the next step. He can just leave now." But when he heard the word stop, even though the person who spoke didn't say who to stop, he almost subconsciously stopped. "Excuse me." Zhang Lingzi picked up the bank card on the ground and folded it in half in front of him, ignoring the other person's changing expression. "Take out the mobile phone in your pocket." "Are you Mr. Bai? Are you busy?" "Busy. Listen to what's going on here. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, X Press 11. Chapter 552. The male special assistant is no stranger to the person walking towards him. Not to mention this face that is still very majestic and highly recognizable even if it is bare face. When he was in the car on the way here, he casually scrolled through his mobile phone and saw a lot of topics about John Lingzi. It's so recognizable. However, before, his attention was focused on Han Jiaojiao in the hospital bed and Pei Zinyuan, who had left a wound on his face. Among the tasks assigned to him by Mr. Bai was to see with his own eyes the extent of Han Jiaojiao's injury. If he could say a few words, it would be best to make Han Jiaojiao, who was lucky enough to survive, angry to death with a high-sounding statement. I really didn't pay much attention to the other people at the scene. Until the person in front of you speaks, there is a sense of presence that no one present can ignore. Even Pei Zinyuan, who was extremely emotional before, became visibly calmer after Zhang Lingzi spoke. The male special assistant suddenly felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy. As Mr. Bai's special assistant, he had helped Mr. Bai deal with many big and small stars before Han Jiaojiao, including several who had reached the first and second tier. But no one can be like the Zhang Lingzi in front of him. Just one look can put him under great pressure. When the other person's eyes fell on the suit pocket, when he came back to his senses, his hand was already on the pocket in a defensive manner. It's simply too much to cover up. You take it out yourself, or should I help you take it out? Ms. Zhang is joking. Mobile phones are personal items. It is illegal to take away other people's personal items. Besides, the police are still here. Aren't you afraid of being detained if you do this? The male assistant resisted the urge to wipe his sweat, paused and continued, besides, although Mr. Bai is busy, it is normal for him to want to know about Miss Han's condition through his mobile phone. I am actually a messenger. Ah. Zhang Lingzi only looked at him coldly, making him unable to leave even if he wanted to. Until I heard a voice coming from behind Zhang Lingzi, that's it? Roll. The male special assistant rolled out for no apparent reason. When he was leaving, he glanced behind Zhang Lingzi out of nowhere. But I only saw the man's profile that was hard to describe with a brush. It looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen it before. I had no choice but to walk out and follow the person on the other end of the phone through the earphone. Han Jiaojiao's injuries are very serious. Visually, she can't even speak, but you also heard that her friend named Pei Zinyuan has a very tough attitude. And unexpectedly, Zhang Lingzi has a good relationship with them. If Zhang Lingzi helps Han Jiaojiao through public opinion, it will probably cause a lot of trouble. Mr. Bai, do you think we should adopt the second solution? As for when Zhang Lingzi revealed that he was on a call on his cell phone, and then suddenly told him to get lost, and the man who seemed a bit familiar suddenly said okay, even he felt a little confused, so he hesitated but didn't say anything. A reply came from the earphone, okay, just in case, you can do it yourself. Yes. As soon as the person stepped forward, Han Jiaojiao fainted. Everyone who stayed in the ward looked ugly. The person from Mr. Bai just now was able to come so quickly because he was either secretly monitoring this place or bribed the staff to tip off the information. That person came here just for Qi Jiaojiao, otherwise he wouldn't have come by such a coincidence. Pei Zinyuan looked at his friend's slightly blue face even if he fainted, and couldn't help but murmured, I shouldn't have just come. Let that speak. Zhang Lingzi had just turned around and exchanged a look with Shen Yunqing that only the two of them could understand. She turned around and saw that Pei Zinyuan was swaying after she vented her anger. She quickly stretched out her hand to support her. You have just recovered from the fever and you have to go back to the ward. Rest. Han Jiaojiao's family is not around if you don't get well, who will take care of her? At this point, Pei Zinyuan was persuaded to go back to the ward next door. Sister Zixi, Mr. Shen, Jiaojiao, and I have troubled you this time. You are so busy yourself, and why you made a special trip here. Her voice was a little hoarse, so Pei Zinyuan had to drink a few sips of warm water and clear her throat before continuing. Said, the police told me last night that there was insufficient evidence, so the people who harmed Jiao Jiao couldn't even be detained unless they found evidence that Jiao Jiao was forced by them and had no choice but to jump off the building. But, I think they just came that person. It's obviously the first time these people have done something like this. It's just because Jiao Jiao was the most serious this time and alerted the police. Sister Zixi, I hate it so much. Zhang Lingzi took the empty cup in her hand and poured a cup of hot water and put it on the bedside table to cool down. Do you think they can cover the sky with one hand? No matter how hard you and Jiao Jiao try, this matter will probably go unsolved in the end. Pei Zinyuan smiled sadly and said with frustration, isn't it? We have no money and no power, how can we compete with those people? Even if Jiao Jiao can speak up and testify, she still needs physical evidence, right? Jiao Jiao is still on her own. The only evidence that walked into Mr. Bai's room under surveillance is against us. Is there any other way? She had always dreamed that Mr. Bai would receive retribution, but the reality was so powerless and helpless. Zhang Lingzi turned to look at Shen Yunqing, who was sitting on the sofa next to him, and waited until he finished sending the message before speaking. Then who is that Mr. Bai? Bai Shenjiao, the only son of the second wife of the Bai family, is the actual shareholder of Shengqiao Media. He has served as the producer of many small-scale online dramas. There are currently 3 online dramas in preparation. The subject matter is a bit borderline, and it cannot be reviewed domestically, so they are usually broadcast on foreign websites. However, I also found that the dramas he invested in did not make much money, and most of them lost money. If you dig deeper, there should be some other tricks. He spoke cryptically, but Zhang Lingzi has been in this modern world for more than half a year, so she naturally understands the meaning of his words. If it's true, it's really lawless. Are you sure you can get rid of the problem? After learning that the evidence was incomplete and the only evidence was not beneficial to her side, Zhang Lingzi had no intention of confronting the other party about Han Jiaojiao from the beginning. It is not only time-consuming and labor-intensive, but also not very effective. It would be better to find the person behind all this and confront him directly. It is definitely not the first time that the other party has done something like this. People with unclean hands cannot wash them clean no matter how much they are washed. There are a lot of braids waiting to be grabbed, so why bother to only hold on to one of them? The outcome is the same anyway, as long as you can get revenge. Shen Yunqing put down the phone and nodded, you can give it a try. Zhang Lingzi has long been used to the reservedness of the man in front of her, so she is 90% sure that she can say this. That'll do. The two of them had already reached a tacit understanding with each other, and Pei Zinyuan, who was sitting in the ward, was stunned for a while. Sister Zixi, Mr. Shen, you. She heard the conversation vaguely, but the more she listened, the less she understood it. Zhang Lingzi turned around and patted her head, get well soon, and then just wait and see Mr. Bai cry. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 553. Ms. Zhang, please rest assured that our police will do our best to give justice to Miss Han Jiaoxiao. Zhang Lingzi slightly raised her lips and nodded to the policewoman in front of her, thank you for your hard work. This is what we are supposed to do. They both knew that Han Jiaojiao could not have accidentally fallen from the building because she was drunk and in a trance. However, due to the importance of procedures and evidence in everything, they must abide by them even if they have no choice but to do so. The policewoman's cell phone suddenly rang, and she quickly answered the call. What, Han Jiaojiao's family has been contacted? Okay, I'll be there right away. Zhang Lingzi looked at the policewoman's back as she turned and hurried away, frowning without a trace. I just heard Pei Xinyuan talk about Han Jiaojiao's family situation in the ward. She doesn't contact her when she doesn't go home, and even only occasionally goes back for 2 days during the Chinese New Year. It can be seen that Han Jiaojiao's relationship with her family can only be considered average. Hope, the scene she thought of will not happen. Asterisk. Pei Xinyuan didn't expect that much when he learned that Han Jiaojiao's father and brother were on their way to the imperial capital. After all, Jiaojiao is, as a family member, even if there are any conflicts at ordinary times, we can't add insult to injury at this time. Furthermore, she could tell that her friend's desire to survive was a little low. After all, if she were to encounter such a thing, she would probably not be any stronger than Jiaojiao. This is the time when you need comfort and encouragement from your family. She was still looking forward to her friend's relatives who were coming this way. Bai Shenjiao also received the news. The assistant had already bought a flight ticket and was about to go to Han Jiaojiao's hometown. Before she could get on the plane, she received a message from her boss, "Then I'll refund the flight ticket." No, people will definitely be picked up directly by the police when they come to the imperial capital. We can't contact them for the time being. You'd better go according to the original schedule and find out personally about their father and son's personality, so that you can prescribe the right medicine. Yes, boss. But Bai Shenjiao soon discovered that he had done nothing more. In the afternoon, Han Jiaojiao's father and brother came to the imperial capital as quickly as possible with the tickets bought by the police. As soon as they left the station, they were taken to the hospital by the police. They saw her lying on the hospital bed seriously injured like a rag doll. After their daughter, sister, was born, the father and son did not show any distress on their faces. The first thing they were concerned about was, "Comrade police, we shouldn't have to pay for this girl's medical expenses, right?" The policeman in question suddenly had a bad feeling when he heard this. Soon, the premonition came true. After learning that they did not need to pay for the medical expenses, the father and son both breathed a sigh of relief without concealing it, and then asked, "What kind of gold and purple club?" "My daughter was killed there and jumped off the building." "You look, it's so miserable, let's just breathe a sigh of relief, we want to compensate, we must compensate." "Yes, compensation, don't be so frivolous, comrade police, you have to help us, my sister is really miserable." The policeman looked at the middle-aged man in front of him who was tall, majestic, and a little plump. He raised his hand to wipe the non-existent tears from the corner of his eyes. He endured it again and again before swallowing back the curse words he wanted to say. His heart was also full of doubts. Are the two people in front of him really Han Jiaojiao's biological father and brother? Is it possible that my colleague found the wrong person? He looked down at his uniform, took another deep breath, and tried to persuade others, besides the matter of compensation, isn't it more important now to encourage Miss Han to cheer up and get well as soon as possible? How can we talk about money-related matters? What if people don't admit it later? Yes, comrade policeman, if you don't take us there, we will find it on our own." As the two of them were about to walk out, the policeman was also stunned for a moment. "Uncle, and this big man brother, your daughter and sister are still lying in the hospital bed. You, the police, are here to watch, as are the doctors and nurses. It's useless for us two to just sit here, we can't just stare at each other, it's more important to do business." "Yes, and didn't the doctor just say that my sister won't be able to work even after she is discharged from the hospital? How can I support her without money? By the way, how can I get to that gold club?" The policeman who was pushed aside by the father and son teamed up and was asked about the way out. "I just can't do heavy work, but I can still work." Now, before she could finish her words, she was interrupted. "She is so disfigured that she can no longer be an actress." Seeing that there was no concern for Miss Han at all on their faces, and their eyes were full of money, the policeman felt a heavy blow in his heart. They went through great trouble to find the victims' relatives, and even escorted them all the way to the imperial capital, just so that the father and son could miss Han's blood. Even if these two people really go to the Zijin Club to get compensation, can they really use it on Miss Han in the future? No, you can't go. Why, we are not criminals. Anyway, you can't act on your own now, otherwise we will send you and your son back the same way. Had they known that the father and son were so virtuous, why would they bother with this? Oh my God, I didn't expect you to threaten us people. Is there any justice in this world? Outside the ward, Pei Xinyuan bit her fingers when she learned that Jiao Jiao's father and brother had rushed over and wanted to see them. She still felt itchy with hatred. She finally understood why Jiao Jiao was unwilling to go home or even contact her relatives, because it was unnecessary and not worth it. Fortunately, she had expectations before. If she had known earlier, it would have been better not to notify her. But the father and son really can't be allowed to leave now. They look so greedy for money. If Mr. Bai finds out, they will probably be bribed with some money. Jiao Jiao can't even speak now. Legally, both her father and brother are more qualified to be guardians than her friend. But if they want to withdraw the lawsuit on Jiao Jiao's behalf, even she can't do anything. Now we can only stabilize people first. Almost pinching the mark on his palm, Pei Xinyuan forced himself to calm down and stepped forward. Uncle, and this eldest brother, I am Jiao Jiao's good friend Pei Xinyuan. We have been renting a house together in the past few years. No, do you know if she mentioned me to you? Xiao Pei, I mentioned it before. Han Das Han looked at the delicate little beauty walking over, and quickly put away the rough expression on his face. You are here to visit our Jiao Jiao, right? We Jiao Jiao, it was a terrible injury. I went to ask for compensation with my father, but this comrade police actually stopped us from going. It is only right to stop you. Pei Xinyuan responded in her heart and whispered slowly on her face, Jiao Jiao is still unconscious. We don't know what happened at that time. If you guys go there, you push me and I push you. I'm just not worried. Do you know who to believe in this matter? You have to wait until Jiao Jiao wakes up to tell us what happened. Seeing the father and son deep in thought, Pei Xinyuan lowered his eyes, covering up the sarcasm in his eyes, and continued to persuade. Besides, the Zijin Club is a large venue, and there are many security guards patrolling the door with electric batons. If you go there like this, they will at a glance, you can tell that you are here to cause trouble. It would be strange if you were not stopped by the time the police comrades stopped you. They were purely concerned about your safety. That's true. I read on the internet that the forces behind the people who open such large entertainment venues are not simple. With Pei Xinyuan's clear analysis, first the inducement and then the implicit threat, Han Das Han recalled what he had done at home. After watching some related videos, my mind finally cooled down a little from the initial frenzy. I stretched out my hand and pulled my father's arm. How about we wait until Jiao Jiao wakes up? Father Han was also a coward. He rubbed his hands and nodded, then wait, I'll ask the doctor when your sister will wake up. Seeing that the father and son were temporarily stabilized, Pei Xinyuan and the policeman looked at each other, and both saw the other heaving a sigh of relief. In the corridor behind him, an old man who was doing cleaning walked away quietly with his body hunched over. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 554. Then Han Jiao's father and brother are both money-minded people? They don't care much about Han Jiao? Are you sure you read that right? Boss, look at when the information I provided you is wrong. As long as you give money, the father and son can definitely buy it easily. Haha, that's easy. When the matter is completed, I will ask my assistant to send you the balance to your old place. Thank you, boss, thank you, boss. Although someone he arranged at the hospital tipped off the news, Bai Shenjiao still cautiously asked his assistant to visit the father and son's hometown. After learning that Mr. Han loved to drink and gamble, and once got so drunk that he almost sent his wife away, the wife couldn't bear it and divorced him directly. The son was also an idler and always felt that he was the son of destiny, but in fact he couldn't do anything. Damn it, the father and son almost laughed out loud after relying on Han Jiaojiao as an actress for most of their lives. Coupled with the fact that the father and son came to the hospital and saw what Han Jiaojiao did, there was no pressure to bribe such a person. For him, as long as money can solve it, it is nothing. What if the police and the little star named Pei Xinyuan temporarily stabilized the father and son? As long as he wanted to, there were 100 ways to get the father and son in front of him. Originally, I was a little worried about Zhang Lingzi trying to create public opinion. With the current popularity of the other party, it would really cause him a lot of trouble. But now, the Han family and his son will soon be a trump card in his hand. When the assistant came back from the unannounced visit, he received the next instruction: go and find a way to get Han Jiaojiao's father and brother in front of me. Asterisk. Originally, the police took the victim's family over because they wanted someone to watch over the victim and at the same time give him encouragement and care. But now, after seeing how unreliable the Han family and his son are, they have to send someone else to watch them to prevent the two of them from making any mistakes when they are not paying attention. Pei Xinyuan didn't dare to leave the hospital even after she recovered from a cold and fever. She had seen through her friend's father and brother, and none of them were reliable. Let these two people take care of Jiao, because they are afraid that Jiao will recover too quickly. She sent an errand to the rental house to pick up the tool basket that was placed in the living room. She stayed by the hospital bed, paying attention to Jiao's condition, and continued to embroider the gifts she prepared for the audience in the live broadcast room. After waking up once during the day and fainting due to anger, Han Jiao woke up again at night. When he opened his eyes, he saw Pei Xinyuan, who was sitting quietly by the bed and doing something with his head down. He tried his best to open his mouth, but because his throat was injured, he still didn't make any sound. He could only blink and wait quietly for the other person to look up. Fortunately, she didn't have to wait too long. After biting off the thread, Pei Xinyuan looked up and saw Han Jiao waking up. His eyes widened in surprise. Jiao, how are you feeling now? The anesthetic seems to be wearing off. Does your wound hurt? I almost forgot that you can't speak yet. Just blink when it hurts. I'll ask the doctor if he can give you a painkiller injection. Han Jiao didn't blink. She looked at her friend and tried her best to smile, showing that she really didn't feel any pain. She has already felt the worst pain. But when Pei Xinyuan saw her smiling, he just wanted to cry. He quickly blinked back the tears and said, as long as it doesn't hurt, it'll be fine. Jiao, you must get better soon. Han Jiao's eyes were startled, and she suddenly lost focus and fell into a trance. Although she can't speak now, fortunately she is not deaf. I heard what the doctor said when I woke up before. Even if he recovers from his injuries and is discharged from the hospital, he will have to sit in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, and his left hand will not be able to do heavy work. He will only be left with a relatively intact right hand and a face that will definitely leave scars. What's the point of living like this? Pei Xinyuan panicked when he saw her expression. Jiao, please don't think too much. As long as people are alive, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. While persuading others, she is also persuading herself. How can you comfort Jiao if she is even sad? Let me see if my sister is awake. The ward door behind him was suddenly opened from the outside. Pei Xinyuan's face changed when he heard the sounds and footsteps coming from outside. She was just thinking about how to tell Jiao that her father and brother were here. She didn't have time to tell Jiao, but why did they come here? When she came back to her senses, she met Han Jiao's eyes. The two had been friends for many years, and she could tell at a glance how much Han Jiao hated the owner of the voice just now. Jiao, your father and your brother were picked up by the police with help. They. Before she finished speaking, she looked at Han Jiao and suddenly closed her eyes. The next second, a person came close to you. Pei Xinyuan quickly took a step away, lowered his head and calmed down the expression on his face. Why are you not awake yet? What do doctors in the hospital do for food? Han Das-han frowned in disappointment, then turned to look at Pei Xinyuan. I thought I heard you talking when I came in just now. Pei Xinyuan's heart skipped a beat. I just sent a voice message on my mobile phone. Han Das-han had no doubts, and smiled greasily. It's really hard for Miss Pei to look at our family. When you get compensation from that club, I will treat you to a meal, a big meal. Pei Xinyuan saw Han Jiao clenching her cheeks and reluctantly pulled her lips. That's no need. I am Jiao's friend, and this is what I should do. Han Das-han didn't hear the hidden meaning of her words at all, so he opened his mouth and yawned. Since Jiao hasn't woken up yet, I'll go back to sleep first. He came here just to see if his sister was awake. It was better to get the compensation as soon as possible. Only when he had the money in hand would he feel at ease. Since he hasn't woken up yet, he can only wait. Fortunately, as family members of the victims, they can enjoy good food, drink, and accommodation when they come to the imperial capital, and they don't have to spend their own money, which is not bad. As soon as Han Das-han stepped forward, Han Jiao opened her eyes and blinked eagerly at Pei Xinyuan, who was looking over. Pei Xinyuan gritted his teeth and had to tell the story of what the father and son had done during the day. Jiao, don't get excited. Now the police also know that they are unreliable, and they even sent someone to watch them. You don't worry, heal your injuries first. Han Jiao glanced left and right, shaking her head. It was the first time for Xinyuan and the police comrades to meet her biological father and eldest brother, and they had no idea how hateful these two people could be. When it comes to the money they can get, those two people won't care whether she dies or not. If she died, they might be happier if they could get more compensation and not have to bear the responsibility of taking care of her. Pei Xinyuan's fingers fell on Han Jiao's eyes that were a little cramped as she struggled to express her emotions. Jiao, Sister Zixi and Mr. Shen also came here during the day. Sister Zixi said she would help you. Sister Zixi is so powerful. Together with the police, I believe they can definitely bring that Mr. Bai to justice. Han Jiao wanted to say it was useless. Last night when she was struggling, she heard the three people talking. It was not the first time that they had done something like this. Some celebrities were even forced to withdraw from the circle, but they were still good. They were habitual criminals with experience in dealing with the police. No matter how powerful Zhang Lingzi is, she is just an actor. How can she have the strength to compete with capital? It's just an egg hitting a stone. Han Das-han was walking in the hospital corridor when he was suddenly bumped into by a cleaning man who was walking towards him. Just as he was about to curse, a piece of paper suddenly appeared in his hand, and at the same time, a low voice whispered in his ear, "Go back and read it again." The scene that looked like a secret meeting made him couldn't help but get excited. He swallowed back the curses on his lips and quietly put the hand holding the note into his pocket. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 555. Han Das-han returned to the arranged residence. Dad, look at me. Father Han has already fallen asleep. He is old, and he eats, drinks, and gambles without restraint. His health is much worse than that of the old people of the same age. In addition, he is in a hurry during the day and falls asleep after eating. As for his daughter who is still unconscious in the hospital, it is a cash machine to him. In terms of feelings, no. Sleep without any psychological burden. At this moment, he was awakened by his son. He opened his eyes and stared at him. "What's the matter with this disturbing your father's sleep in the middle of the night? Tell me immediately, what's the matter, is your sister awake?" "No, no." Han Das-han, who was tall and mighty, shrank his shoulders subconsciously when his father glared at him. "I just came back from the hospital and I haven't woken up yet." "Why did you ask me to wake up? You are such a big man and I have to wait for you to sleep." Han Das-han squeezed the note in his hand, and suddenly he didn't want to share the fact that someone in the hospital was quietly communicating with him with the old man in front of him, who was getting increasingly bad-tempered. "Dad, you go to sleep, you go on sleeping." Hearing the snoring ringing in his ears again, Han Das-han walked to the bathroom, sat on the toilet seat, and then opened the note that had become damp. After reading the content on the note, my breathing suddenly became rapid. When he raised his head again, his face was already flushed. Fortunately I didn't tell that smelly old man outside. Otherwise, how could he enjoy such a huge benefit alone? Based on his father's virtue, what ended up in his hands might only be 3 melons and 2 dates. With huge profits in his hands, Han Das-han finally had an idea. After he memorized the number and address on the note, he followed the above instructions to tear the note into pieces, opened the toilet seat and rushed it in. Sewer. At this moment, he gently opened the bathroom door and walked out, standing in front of the single bed where the snoring sound came from. He muttered silently, "Dad, don't blame your son for being unkind this time. If the money is in your hands, it's time to drink and gamble. I won't get much money at all. I've been implicated for more than 30 years by you. I haven't even married a wife yet. As long as I get this money, I can choose the beautiful girls around my hometown, and then I will keep it with my wife for your retirement." After reading this, he felt much more comfortable. He lay down on the bed next to him without any burden, enjoying the scene of buying a house, a car, and marrying a beautiful wife after becoming a millionaire. He couldn't help but laugh and fall asleep. Asterisk. Pei Xinyuan was busy embroidering gifts while accompanying Han Jiaojiao, who woke up, and finally finished the remaining gifts before noon the next day. Originally, she was a little worried that the Han family and his son would come over and cause trouble. Last night, Jiaojiao pretended to be asleep and hid Han Das-han from it. But if the doctor was there during the day, she wouldn't be able to tell this lie. As a result, the entire morning passed without even a single person in sight. I asked the police officer who was responsible for monitoring the movements of the father and son. He said that the father and son were still sleeping half-heartedly and did not wake up. Each one was snoring louder than the other. There was no possibility of disturbing each other. The trainee police officer responsible for monitoring the two people was completely speechless. Pei Xinyuan was speechless for several seconds after hearing this. "It's no use worrying." Han Jiaojiao was not surprised at all. Both father and son were heartless, and they were only after money. There was no place for her as a daughter, sister. He only thinks of her every month when he needs her to send money home. She was disgusted, but had no choice but to do so. She guessed that the father and son even wished she had died so that they could receive more compensation. It just so happened that she was now thinking that it would be best if something happened to the father and son and they died directly. Seeing the doctor come in for examination, Pei Xinyuan quickly stood up and moved out of the way. "Jiaojiao, I'll go out and make a video call." Han Jiaojiao blinked to show that she understood. After leaving the ward, Pei Xinyuan first sent a message to the group created by the crew for live broadcast. "Sorry to keep everyone waiting, my gifts have been prepared and can be sent out." The first one to respond is always Wei Minmin, who has the fastest internet speed. Don't worry, Xinyuan, how is your friend?" More than a day has passed, and everyone now knows that they were eating melons and eating people they knew. As soon as Wei Minmin's message appeared on the chat interface, several words of comfort and understanding appeared below. "Pei Xinyuan, thank you everyone for your concern. Fortunately, My life was saved. That's good. If you need any help, you can come to me. Although he knew this was just a courtesy, Pei Zinyuan thanked him again before exiting the chat room. Standing there quietly for a moment, he clicked on Zhang Lingzi's profile picture to invite a video call. Sister Zixi said yesterday that she would help. This was different from what those people in the group said just now. She could feel that Sister Zixi really wanted to seek justice for Jiao Xiao. But the behavior of Jiao Jiao's father and brother who came yesterday in the ward really made her uneasy. She always felt that these two people would do bad things. After much deliberation, it's better to remind Sister Zixi. Zhang Lingzi had just finished reading the chat history in the group. When she saw Pei Zinyuan's video invitation, she clicked to connect. Sister Zixi, I want to tell you something. Is it related to Han Jiao's father and brother? Yes, they went to the hospital yesterday, but they didn't care about Jiao at all. They just wanted to ask for compensation based on Jiao's serious injury. I always feel that they might be up to something bad. Zhang Lingzi looked at the worry on Pei Zinyuan's face. It's not a possibility, it's a certainty. Her eyes fell behind Pei Zinyuan again, and she saw that this girl should be in the hospital corridor at this moment. Yesterday, Bai Shenjiao's assistant came so promptly. I guess there are people they bribed in the hospital, nurses, cleaners, it could be anyone. Pei Zinyuan couldn't help but widen her eyes. She subconsciously covered her phone and looked around. Could there be Mr. Bai's eyeliner around her now? Don't be afraid, that person can only do something to tip off the news. As long as Han Jiao has an accident in the hospital, that Bai Shenjiao will be suspected of murder and silence. He will not dig his own grave. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought about it yesterday. Take money to seal it. Pei Zinyuan thought the same thing, but I feel a little uncomfortable when I think of someone hiding in the dark and watching me quietly no matter what I do. Bai Shenjiao will probably try to bribe Han Jiao's father and brother. I can guess his plan, and the police should have thought of it. I've also thought about this possibility, but now that their movements are restricted, they shouldn't be able to see Mr. Bai, right? Innocent, Zhang Lingzi chuckled. Money can make all ghosts go around, let alone people. Zinyuan, you are still in the hospital now. When you see the Han family and his son, you should observe them carefully. If I were you, guessed it right, Bai Shenjiao has already communicated with them in some way. The Han family and his son tried their best to escape from the police surveillance and meet with Bai Shenjiao. Why are there so many people? Jiao, sister, you are finally awake, but you are worried about your brother and our father. Pei Zinyuan hung up the video and turned around to look over. He saw that the Han family and his son had already entered the ward and were walking towards the bed with excitement on their faces. Thinking about what Sister Zixi reminded me just now, she quickly raised her feet and followed in. She wanted to see how these two people would get rid of the restrictions and meet the hateful culprit. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 556. The situation is relatively stable. However, the doctor closed the medical record in his hand. The patient's mood is relatively negative, which is not conducive to physical recovery. The family should still give more support and encouragement, and strive to help the patient get out of the shadows as soon as possible and face life positively. Han Das-han nodded as he listened. Thank you, doctor, for saving my sister's life. Thank you, thank you. He originally wanted to shake the doctor's hand, but he avoided it and took it back without any embarrassment, promising, I will definitely encourage us, Jiao. Even Father Han couldn't help but look at his son in surprise at this change of attitude. Pei Zinyuan looked on with cold eyes, only feeling full of weirdness. Just one night later, the vampire who sucked blood from my sister turned into a good brother who cares about her? Unless Han Das-han was penetrated by his soul. Either, there is a motivation that drives him to do this. To put it bluntly, it is money. Pei Xinyuan felt a chill in his heart when he thought of this. Could it be that Han Das-han thought that by becoming a good brother who cared about his sister, he would be able to escape the police's grasp and regain his freedom? Looking at Father Han, who also had a puzzled look on his face, Pei Xinyuan wanted to laugh. Was it because they didn't communicate well in advance, or because Father Han didn't know that someone wanted to bribe them? Hand on, it is not impossible. Both father and son have selfish personalities, and Father Han seems to be used to being a dictator. Not only does he have no affection for his daughter, he also bosses his son around. Moreover, she also knows that Han Das-han is not married even after he is over 30. On the one hand, it was because he himself was a lazy person, and on the other hand, most of the money Jiao Jiao transferred to the family was squandered by Han's father. How strange it is that the son is not dissatisfied with his biological father at all. So Han Das-han wants to leave his biological father alone and only take the money that Mr. Bai bought them. Pei Xinyuan glanced at Han Das-han, who had sent the doctor to the door and then returned to the bedside to play the good brother. He took out his cell phone and quietly sent his guest to Zhang Lingzi. Zhang Lingzi was thinking about whether to make a fuss about the Han family and his son, when she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows when she saw the message from Pei Xinyuan. After she hung up the video with Pei Xinyuan just now, she went to Shen Yunqing to discuss the next arrangements. Since the Han family and his son are so imbecile, then they should be left to their own devices. Her plan was to use the trick. Since Bai Shenjia wanted to bribe the Han family and his son, let this bribery become a talisman for the Han family and his son. But this requires a prerequisite, which is to drive a wedge between father and son. Unexpectedly, Han Das-han had his own little thought before he could take action. Really, it saved her a lot of trouble. Xin helped Han Das-han get rid of his restrictions without telling Han Jiao's father, and let him meet Bai Shenjia alone. Pei Xinyuan originally wanted to remind the police not to relax their vigilance because of Han Das-han's sudden change in personality, but instead received this message. Out of trust in Zhang Lingzi, she hesitated and replied with one word, "Okay. Your Majesty plans to let the Han family and his son break up due to financial reasons." Zhang Lingzi raised her head and met the eyes of Shen Yunqing, who was sitting in front of the desk. "Aren't they here for money? Then dying for money would be considered complimentary." When he said this, Zhang Lingzi's coldness showed. People like the Han family and his son, who are just a waste of air, can be considered a worthy death if they can contribute to solving people like Bai Shenjia. It is true that there is a lot of dirt hidden in the circle she is currently in, but there are also many people who really love this industry. The existence of Bai Shenjia has killed the dreams of many people. Damn it! Asterisk. Han Das-han also risked his life for money. He acted for a whole afternoon. Not to mention that he was tired from acting, even Pei Xinyuan was tired from watching it. Seeing that it was already evening, he glanced at the policeman who was still guarding outside the ward, and his eyes fell on Pei Xinyuan. "Xinyuan, Miss Pei, I would like to ask you to accompany me out. Is it convenient for you? Where do you want to go?" After Pei Xinyuan asked, the policeman guarding the door also stood up from the bench. "I just want to buy some flowers, fruits, etc. for Jiao Jiao. I remember there is one at the entrance of the hospital. Look, there is nothing in this ward. There are white flowers everywhere and the smell of disinfectant. Why stay here all day? She might be in a good mood. I just think she might feel better if she looks at the flowers and eats some fruit." These words were paired with Han Das-han's deliberately made expression. If he had seen and heard it when they met for the first time yesterday, Pei Xinyuan felt that he might really believe it. But now, she had doubts in her heart. No matter how she looked at it, she felt it was fake. After being silent for a long time, Han Das Han pointed at his father. My father is still here, how can I run away? Not always. Thinking so, Pei Xinyuan remembered the task Zhang Lingzi gave her, and thought to herself that Sister Xixi's calculations were really accurate, and Han Das Han really asked her to cooperate. Brother Han is still thoughtful, then I will accompany you. Han Jiao Xiao. No, just this afternoon, this stupid girl Xinyuan really believed that her brother was sincerely good to her? That guy must have another purpose. But these words could only be shouted in her mind, and she watched helplessly as her friend followed Han Das Han out. The police are accustomed to follow. Han Das Han frowned and said, Ms. Pei is going with me. The police comrades are not at ease. I am Jiao Jiao's brother. If I don't do it for her own good, who will do it for you? Pei Xinyuan replied silently in his heart, it's okay to not worry, it must be for your own good. Dan gave a helpful assurance on his face, Brother Han really took care of Jiao Jiao today. I think I can trust him for once. Father Han looked at the backs of the two people leaving, with several wrinkles forming on his forehead. His son suddenly cared for his daughter in every possible way, which really shocked him. But this afternoon he failed to find a chance to ask this boy what he really thought. Could it be that he had become a good brother who cared for his sister? Intuition is impossible, there is definitely a ghost. He thought about following him, but was stopped before he reached the door. Uncle, you should stay and watch over your daughter. There is no shortage of flower shops and fruit shops in front of the hospital. Han Das Han chose one that seemed to be the largest and had the most complex structure inside. After entering, he turned left, right, and right. He looked back at Pei Xinyuan, who was following behind and was seriously sowing flowers, and stopped a clerk, where is the toilet? Go out and turn left, walk straight for 100 meters and you'll be there. As soon as Pei Xinyuan heard this, he knew that this man was making an excuse to escape. When Han Das Han looked over, he nodded cooperatively, I'll be waiting here. Go back as soon as possible. Han Das Han promised. After leaving the flower shop and walking a few dozen meters, he stopped a taxi. He got in and closed the door. Master, hurry up and go to White Jade Tea House. After hearing the destination, the taxi driver couldn't help but turn his head and glance at him, then stepped on the accelerator and drove towards the destination. Pei Xinyuan waited for nearly 20 minutes, which was enough time even for a large patient, before running back to the hospital with a panic look on his face. Seeing that his son didn't come back with him, before Pei Xinyuan could say anything, Han's father reacted faster than everyone present. He slapped his thigh and cursed loudly, this dared to carry me alone on his back. He has such a strong wings. On the other side, Bai Shenjiao saw that Han Das Han was the only one brought in by his assistant, and his brows suddenly furrowed, is there another one? End of chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, X. Press 11. Chapter 557. Han Das Han was originally straight-backed and confident, but the person he was going to meet this time had harmed his sister badly, and he realized that he came here to seek justice and compensation for his sister. He is the one who holds the truth. Until the taxi stopped at the entrance of a courtyard that looked very majestic and wealthy, he was a little embarrassed to step on the cleanly swept steps. When he called the number he had written down last night, a man in a full suit came out to greet him. He thought he was the owner of the place, but the man said he was just Mr. Bai's assistant. Entering the courtyard, he looked at the rock areas and flowing water everywhere, the various flowers that should have been carved at this time of the year, and a few young girls in beautiful cheongsams, but they were only doing tasks such as picking flowers and serving dishes, which almost made him think that he suddenly traveled hundreds of years ago and entered the courtyard of some noble person. So by the time he actually saw Mr. Bai, who was fishing by the pond in the courtyard, the momentum that Han Das Han had worked so hard to accumulate along the way was already gone. When someone looked back and frowned at me, he almost couldn't help but nod and bow, and quickly explained with a smile, "Mr. Bai, my dad has old arms and legs, and he has a bad temper as he gets older. I'm afraid that he might have offended you accidentally, and I have the same qualifications." Bai Shenjiao's eyes turned around on Han Das-han's flattering and careful face, and he suppressed his disgust and looked at the assistant beside him. The assistant immediately understood and turned around to call someone to verify the reason why the other person did not come with him. Han Das-han couldn't help but rub his hands nervously. Being looked at by those eyes that seemed to have no emotion, he felt inexplicably being seen through. "Boss, Han Laokai is indeed in Han Jiao's ward in the hospital, and the police are also there. Yes, 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 my dad is helping me stabilize there, otherwise I wouldn't be able to come to the door so smoothly now that I'm here too. I want to know how you solve this problem." Bai Shenjiao ignored him, turned around, and pulled up the fish that had been bitten by the hook in the water. When he saw what the fish looked like, he frowned and simply threw it back into the pond. Then he slowly hung some fish food on the hook and threw the rod again. "What I want you to do is actually very simple." Han Das-han was not a good-tempered person to begin with. He had been impatient for a long time. When he heard this, he responded hastily, "As long as the money is in place, everything will be easy to talk about." Bai Shenjiao chuckled lightly, with a hint of smile in his tone, "I want your father, as your sister's guardian, to drop the charges against me. Can it be done? As long as the matter is done, you and your son want to, there will be rewards." "My dad, can only my dad be the guardian? I am still Han Jiao's biological brother, so I can also use the status of guardian, right?" As soon as he said this, two pairs of eyes looked over. Han Das-han was so stunned that he took 2 steps back, his heart pounding. "Did I say something wrong?" Bai Shenjiao took a deep breath, pinched his brows, and said coldly, "Let me ask you for the last time, does Han Laokai know that I asked you to come to me?" The word "men" in the middle has been deliberately emphasized a bit. Me. There is no need to listen to the next words. Just looking at the evasive eyes and hesitant words, there is nothing Bai Shenjiao can't understand. I didn't expect that someone would dare to play such a trick with me these days. The key is that the person playing with this trick is a rotten person that I don't like at all. He laughed angrily. "It's easy for you to be Han Jiao's direct guardian. As long as Han Laokai is gone, you, my brother, will be the one." Han Das-han raised his head in shock, his mouth trembling so much that he couldn't speak for a while. But soon he became thoughtful. He really never thought about killing his own father for money, but if he wanted to take the compensation alone, he would have to become Jiao's direct guardian, and his father would be a living obstacle. On the one hand, there is compensation that will allow him to live comfortably for the rest of his life, and on the other hand, he yells at himself every day and even refuses to help him get a wife, which is of no help to him. When he gets older, he still has to be responsible for raising him. Dad. After Han Das-han swung wildly between the two for a moment, he finally got infinitely close to the former. He learned one thing from his biological father: this is the only life for a person, so it doesn't matter if you feel sorry for others, as long as you live comfortably. So Dad, don't blame your son for being cruel, I learned this from you. Bai Shenjiao looked at Han Das-han's increasingly fierce eyes and knew his choice. A little surprising, but not too surprising. Son-type father, according to the information he investigated, neither father nor son is a good person. Han Laokai can beat his wife away alive. At first, he thought Han Das-han would be better, but now it seems that he is indeed Han Laokai's son. However, his hush money is not so easy to get. Within 2 days, I will receive the news that you, as Han Jiao's guardian, will withdraw the lawsuit on her behalf. This is a 10% deposit, and the balance will be paid after the withdrawal of the lawsuit is confirmed. Han Das-han looked at the check handed to him. By the light in the yard, he deliberately counted the zeros on it, then wiped his hands on his clothes and took it with suppressed excitement. Well, what if 2 days are not enough? 1 day late, 1 million will be deducted. I try my best. Okay, send him out. It's almost dinner time, it's really unappetizing. The assistant sent the person to the door and returned the same way. Boss, aren't you afraid that Han Das-han will take the deposit and run away? The deposit alone is only 1 million. Didn't I tell him, this is only 10%. For the remaining 9 million, he would rather kill his biological father than run away. If you don't believe it, just wait and see. Anyway, I gave him 2 days' time. Han Das-han put the check close to his body and spent the whole way back mentally building up and figuring out how to create an accident. He thought he couldn't kill his father with his own hands, and there were policemen around him. He just wanted money and had no intention of being caught and put in jail. The only person who can be used is that his father is not on guard against him. Getting out of the taxi and looking at more than 10 missed calls on his phone, Han Das-han was about to dial back when the 20th call came in. As soon as the call was connected, before I could speak, I was scolded. You went to the toilet to eat before you answered my call? When your wings become stiff, do you want to leave me and fly alone? I tell you, no way, I don't know how to be careful about that, so get back here and see how I teach you a lesson. After hanging up the phone, Han Das-han touched the check on his body first, passed by a small store, gritted his teeth and bought a few bottles of good wine with high alcohol content and some snacks that could be eaten out of the package, and finally went into a drugstore. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 558. Pei Xinyuan set up a small nursing bed in Han Jiaojiao's ward. Given the severity of Han Jiaojiao's injuries, she actually wouldn't be able to help much if she stayed here. Some things could only be done with professional care. All she can do is comfort, encourage and accompany her. I was drowsily sleeping late at night when I was woken up. When she was first woken up, she thought something had happened to Han Jiaojiao, and she was so frightened that she broke into a sweat. Until the police came in and told her and Han Jiaojiao, who was also woken up, Han Laokai is suffering from alcohol poisoning and has just been sent to the emergency room for rescue. Pei Xinyuan almost thought he heard wrongly, and couldn't help but blurt out, "Is he still in the mood to drink now?" The night nurse who followed over said, "Ahem, borrow it. Let's drink to drown our sorrows." Pei Xinyuan came back and glanced at Han Jiaojiao, meeting her eyes without any emotion. As if this kind of thing is not surprising at all. "Did you drink a lot?" Our colleague who is responsible for watching over the father and son said that Han Das-han explained that his sister was feeling uncomfortable and panicked now, so he secretly ran away to buy wine. The father and son usually just drink this when they are tired at home. This time it was just a way to relieve the worries in my heart. This reason was reasonable, and we had no reason to confiscate the wine, so we just let them drink with the door closed. Who knew that something would happen while they were drinking? There was still more than half a bottle left when we went in. But having said that, the policeman who came to notify me was also a little suspicious. His colleague also picked up the wine and looked at it. It was 55 degrees, not low but not very high either. The two of them drank less than a pound each. Moreover, Han Laokai is an old drunkard and usually drinks a lot. Why did something happen this time? Is it really an accident? At the moment, we can only wait until people leave the emergency room before asking the doctor. Since Han Das-han was not here, Pei Xinyuan was too lazy to pretend and ask directly, "Where is Han Das-han?" He was fine. He couldn't hold on after arriving at the hospital. He fell asleep while sitting outside the emergency room. He was still talking in his sleep when I first came here. Pei Xinyuan walked to the bed and smoothed Han Jiaojiao's hair, I'll go over and take a look. Han Jiaojiao blinked at her. In fact, I really want to say, screw them to death. Pei Xinyuan walked to the door of the emergency room and saw Han Das Han, who was leaning on a chair, smelling of alcohol and sleeping deeply. He held his breath and walked closer, and could hear that he was still talking in his sleep. She looked carefully and realized that this person had actually been muttering the same sentence. I didn't say anything, I didn't say anything. Infinite loop. Pei Xinyuan. Always feel a little weird. She couldn't sleep after what happened. Just find a seat farther away and sit down and wait. By the way, I took out my mobile phone and swiped it. Just before lunch, she called a courier boy to deliver all 10 gifts, and the same went with everyone else in the group. The express was used, and half a day passed, and all the winning viewers in the imperial capital or surrounding areas should have received it by now. Click on the hot search list, and you will see an item on the list hashtag live broadcast winning and showing off gifts is coming hashtag. Open the entry, and there is a large picture on the first topic, which is an open ink painting. The deer, which was drinking water by the stream bank, seemed to hear something and turned around to look over. With just a few strokes, the quiet corner of the mountain forest and the lively deer were sketched out as if they could jump out of the paper in the next second. Pei Xinyuan could tell at a glance that it was drawn by Sister Zixi. When I click on the comment, there are a lot of envious voices. What kind of prize was drawn? Can it still be drawn now? Friendly reply, this is a lottery held by the main creator of Empress Yuan Zhao on the day of the live broadcast. The opportunity is only once, and there should be no more in the future. I heard that it was a gift prepared by the creator who participated in the live broadcast at the time, but now looking at the quality of the painting, the skill of the framing, and even the box in which the painting is placed is very particular. Why don't I believe it now? I also suspect that this was bought. Do celebrities dare to steal the painter's job these days? Dante mention it, there is really someone who can hold the painter's bowl. I don't understand what I mean, so I directed you to watch the variety show Painting and Calligraphy handed down from generation to generation that was broadcast on national Taiwan some time ago. I dare say that Zhang Lingzi's painting skills are definitely not inferior to those of professional painters. Even Mr. Zhang Nashuan was on the show at that time. It's highly praised. I am going to search for it right now. Can't he find it? Prompts that it needs to be re-edited. Please wait patiently. I guess I was affected by what happened with Su Qingmei and Jing Huai. Should I edit out these two people? That's not bad. In the past few days, many dramas and programs featuring Su Qingmei and Jing Huai have been removed from the shelves. It's too late to cache and download them. Su Qingmei seems to have really cooled down. When she was transferred to a private hospital, there were no paparazzi following her anymore, and the hot searches were all removed. Thank God, thanks to China National Television, this is the only program I have found that Mr. Shen participated in. Fortunately, it was not taken off the shelves, otherwise I would have cried to death. Shake hands upstairs. I also became a fan of Mr. Shen because of this show. I would like to ask Mr. Shen to read this comment and participate in more programs if you have time. Pei Xinyuan couldn't help but closed the comment area where the topic had gone off track unknowingly, clicked on a commonly used video app, and searched for it. Sure enough, it prompted a temporary removal process. As long as it's not permanently removed from the shelves, that's fine. Just as she was about to go back to see if anyone showed off the gifts she had given out, the door to the emergency room across the way suddenly opened. She turned off her phone and stood up to look over. At this sight, I almost lost my grip on the phone, and fell straight back into my seat. The policeman who was also waiting nearby also changed his expression. Sorry, the patient's alcohol poisoning caused acute cerebral hemorrhage and concurrent functional damage to multiple organs. We are doing our best. Han Das Han was not woken up until Han Laokai's body was sent to the morgue. Pei Xinyuan even gritted her teeth and slapped him twice, but he still didn't wake up and continued talking in his sleep. Even the police had no choice but to say, "Let him sleep. He won't be able to come back if he wakes up. He drank and killed his own father, so he can have a peaceful sleep. From now on, you can't live in regret and guilt every day." After settling Han Das Han, Pei Xinyuan returned to the ward and saw that Han Jiaojiao was still asleep. After hesitating, he told her that Han's father died of alcohol poisoning in the emergency room. Han Jiaojiao was obviously startled. Although she secretly cursed her father more than once in her heart that it would be better for her to be alive than to be dead, she never expected that this man would really disappear like this. It was still when she was killed and seriously injured after falling from a building. She could not even eat while lying in the hospital bed. Her biological father actually drank himself to death. How ironic. She winked at Pei Xinyuan. "Are you asking about Han Das Han?" Pei Xinyuan looked at Han Jiaojiao and blinked again, hesitated for a moment and then replied, "Still sleeping, I can't wake her up." "Han Jiaojiao. Are you sure you're not pretending because you killed your own father?" End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 559. Han Das Han was moved to an empty bed by two strong caregivers. After all, hospitals are very humane and people cannot just sleep in the corridor all night. Just waiting for the nurse to turn off the lights and leave, and close the door, the person who was still slumped on the bed like a piece of mud almost instantly curled up into a ball, shaking and shaking with the quilt covering him. No matter how good my expectations were before, no matter how much psychological construction I put into it, I watched helplessly as my biological father fell to the ground and called for help under my own design, and the light in his eyes gradually disappeared. It was a feeling that I would never dare to experience again in this life. Experience it once. He really fell asleep outside the rescue room just now. He did drink a lot of wine with him, but he was not at the point of falling asleep yet. I just wanted to escape by falling asleep. He woke up when the doctor informed him that he was gone, but he didn't dare to open his eyes in front of outsiders, especially the police, for fear of being noticed that his face and eyes were wrong. Even when Pei Xinyuan slapped him, he resisted the urge to open his eyes. Until he was the only one left around, with a thick quilt covering his body, he dared to release the fear in his heart. "Dad, my son doesn't want to harm you. You always like to take advantage of it and leave nothing to me. Who is the father who doesn't give everything for his own children? If I want to blame you, I blame you for being too selfish. Now that you can die on your favorite drink in your life, it is considered a well-deserved death. You certainly didn't hate me when you left, right? Dad, if you die, you will die, but don't come to me." Han Das Han comforted himself in his heart while reaching out to touch the check that was already damp. Hunting to find the police tomorrow to withdraw the case on behalf of Han Jiaojiao and get the remaining balance, he will transfer Han Jiaojiao to a cheaper hospital and hire a nurse. It will be enough. The police know the address of his hometown, and he has no plans to go back to his hometown. He has 10 million in his hand. With just the interest in the bank, he can eat and drink without worries, and he will not be able to go anywhere by then. After summing up all this, Han Das Han forced himself to close his eyes. "Boss, Han Laokai is dead. He died of alcohol poisoning." In the dimly lit screening room, Bai Shenjia raised his eyebrows in surprise. Then he chuckled softly. "I didn't expect that. Despite his humble appearance, his attacks were quite neat and ruthless." The assistant nodded with a complicated expression. He also didn't expect it. "The check for the final payment. Get him ready and let him take the check and go on the road happily." The assistant patted the hair on the back of his hand and bowed slightly. Yes. Han Das Han is not ruthless enough. People who are truly ruthless wear an approachable and gentle mask. Like his boss. Asterisk. It was the next morning that Zhang Lingzi heard from Pei Xinyuan that Han Jiao's father had died of alcohol poisoning on the operating table. This is not right. Sister Zixi, what do you think is wrong? Han Das Han went to see Bai Shenjiao, and Han Laokai died. Now Han Das Han is Han Jiao's direct guardian. If he had to withdraw the lawsuit on Han Jiao's behalf, and tell the police that he would no longer pursue the case, then compensate all the money will be in the hands of Han Das Han. Pei Xinyuan suddenly thought of a possibility, and cold sweat broke out on his back. You mean, Han Das Han didn't hesitate to kill his own father in order to keep the compensation? This. It's really too sensational. Actually, there is a gentler way, isn't it? Han Laokai is already so old, so we only need to make him lose his civil capacity, and he doesn't have to die. She could accept it if it was an accident, but if it was a deliberate murder, it would be really frightening. Han Das Han, is he a devil? Thinking about it again, I slapped him twice last night. Zhang Lingzi took the shawl that Fang Yao took from the cloakroom and put it on her body. She waved her hand when she was about to close the balcony window. It's okay. Let the cool breeze help you wake up, then she said to Pei Xinyuan on the phone. Yes, whether it is or not, we will find out after checking. If she hadn't happened to have work today, she would have gone to the hospital in person. Just one look at Han Das Han, she could tell whether there was something wrong with him. Ah, how do we check this? Han Laokai's body has been sent to the morgue. If Han Das Han deliberately murdered his father, he must make complete preparations, otherwise it will be in vain if he fails to meet expectations. Han Laokai is definitely not just alcohol poisoning. I suggest you report the crime and say that you suspect Han Das Han plotted to kill his father and suggested an autopsy. There may also be something fishy about what they drank and ate yesterday. Sister Zixi, let me think about it carefully. As soon as possible, and one more reminder, people will become extra calm after extreme panic. Han Das Han may not have thought of destroying the evidence last night, but if he calmed down, he would definitely do it as soon as possible. Also, he will also demand that his father's body be disposed of as soon as possible. Pei Xinyuan couldn't help but swallowed dryly after hearing this. I understand, Sister Zixi, please be busy. I originally wanted to go to the event to meet you, but I'm afraid I don't have time now. I wish you all the best in your event. Okay, let me lend you some good advice. After hanging up the call from Pei Xinyuan, Zhang Lingzi folded her shawl and placed a call on Shen Yunking's mobile phone. Waiting for the call to come through, he said bluntly, Han Jiao's father is dead. Shen Yunking was silent for only a second. Han Das Han's hand. As expected, the methods are quite ruthless. Bai Shenjiao should also be interested in it. Okay, I get it. Then the follow-up processing of this matter will be left to you. Sister Tong came to call me. I have to go to work. Well, go ahead. Hang up the phone. Zhang Lingzi turned around and waved to Tong Yu, who was standing at the junction of the living room and the balcony, her smile blooming like the sun's rays. Good morning, Sister Tong. Tong Yu just heard some vague sounds and felt that this girl was doing something important behind her back. But seeing the person smiling so beautifully, her intention to ask her question faded away. Mr. Shen personally sent over the clothes for today's attendance. You have good taste and picked the ones yourself. The makeup artist is also here. Zheng Zheng said you haven't had breakfast yet. You have to be busy all morning. Eat more breakfast later. Zhang Lingzi returned to the living room from the balcony after listening to her nagging instructions, and said hello to Shen Chuiyu, who was hanging clothes with her assistant. Then she saw Shen Chuiyu, who had been at work for several days, but this was the first time they met. A small team of makeup artists dedicated to her. In fact, it is one makeup artist and two makeup artist assistants. Hello, Teacher Zhang, I am Xiao Xiao, and I study under Teacher Yunping. Zhang Lingzi took Xiao Xiao's extended hand and nodded slightly to the two assistants behind her, a man and a woman. Happy cooperation. It has been more than half a year since she woke up, and she finally put together her own small team before the year before. End of chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 560. Sister-in-law, look at these live posters, I chose them, what do you think? Zhang Ning took a bite of the steamed bun and looked sideways at the photos she had just taken and sent on Shen Shui's phone. I didn't see the posters immediately. I first saw a long queue outside the glass wall of the shop that was still closed. So many people. Ah, Shen Shui was stunned for a moment, then looked down at the photo. She clicked on the screen on her phone and zoomed in. These people who came here in advance are all your fans. All serious customers know that Baikan Plaza only opens at 10 o'clock. Open the door. Sister-in-law, you haven't been online for the past 2 days. There are many fans from other places who want to form a group. Zhang Lingzi shook her head honestly, I didn't pay much attention after forwarding your account's updates. I went to draw. Shen Shui knew about this. There was still one hanging in her office, so she immediately nodded in understanding. At the beginning, someone proposed to organize a group to meet you in the news. Now look, it's really here. Zhang Lingzi wiped her hands, swiped through a few more photos, and suddenly turned to ask Lu Zhengzheng, who was sitting on the other side checking today's itinerary, Zhengzheng, what is the temperature today? Lu Zhengzheng subconsciously clicked on the weather on the tablet, 5 to 8 degrees, sunny, but there is a northeasterly wind, level 4. I was wearing a coat when I came here. Zhang Lingzi looked at the fans waiting outside the store in the photo. Some of them were only wearing a thin coat, with their hands folded across their chests. They looked cool, but it was probably just because they were cold. There are nearly 2 hours until Baikan Plaza opens. Yao Yao, Zhang Lingzi called Fang Yao over, now you arrange 2 beverage trucks to go to Baikan Plaza to provide some hot drinks and hot water to those who have already arrived. Please prepare some food, such as bread or something. Looking at the length of the queue, she estimated that some people might have rushed through without even eating breakfast. Besides, we still have to wait for nearly 2 hours, and even drinking can't replenish much energy. Okay, Sister 11, I'll do it right now. Seeing Fang Yao holding her phone and turning away to make arrangements, Shen Shui patted her forehead and said, I didn't think well. It's quite cold today. Why didn't I think of arranging something to eat and drink for everyone? Yes, after saying that, he didn't forget to compliment, my cousin is very considerate. Zhang Lingzi, the photos are very nice. It's all about her, how can it not look good? Hey, as long as my cousin is satisfied. The assistant who followed Shen Shui to help. Her eyesight was open today, she was lucky enough to see her boss acting like such a loser. Asterisk. Baikan Square. From time to time in the long queue, there could be sounds of stamping feet, rubbing hands, and sniffling. The fans who came from cities further north were fine. They kept their hats and thick coats, and were wrapped up tightly. But it was a bit miserable coming from the southern city. I didn't expect that when the sun had already risen around 8 o'clock in the north, being blown by the swirling little north wind was really chilling. Moreover, I didn't even think about bringing thick clothes that I couldn't wear in the south. I rushed to the event venue early in the morning, but it turned out that it wasn't even the opening time. We could only wait in this open space in the cold wind, not daring to leave, for fear that we would have to queue up again if we finally left the queue. Gilialo. The girl holding her belly looked into the eyes of the girl in front of her, who turned her head and looked over, and twitched her lips in embarrassment. It's too late, but I haven't had time to eat yet. As soon as he said this, he was immediately greeted by the look of regret from the girl in front of him. What a coincidence, I didn't eat either. I see there is a pancake and fruit seller at the other end of the square. How about you hold a seat for me and I can run over and buy two? Yes, can you help me buy a cup of hot soy milk by the way? My hands are frozen and froze. I didn't expect that the early winter of the north was so cold. I knew I had a thick clothes. I transfer it to you. No need to help each other. While they were declining, the two of them heard someone in the queue behind exclaimed. What is that? What's printed on the car looks like Zixie's photo. Is Zixie here? How is it possible? The store hasn't opened yet. Besides, who would print a photo of themselves on their car? Doesn't that tell everyone that the person in the car is Zixie? Even if it's not Zixie, it must be related to Zixie. As the two cars slowly drove into the square and stopped at the parking spot closest to the team, everyone in the queue finally saw clearly what car was coming. One side of the car body can be opened, a shed is set up above, and the drinks are placed directly on the counter, clearly telling everyone. These are two drink carts. Are you going to sell it or give it away? Just when someone couldn't help but want to ask, two boys wearing uniforms of the milk tea shop came out of the car. One was holding an incubator, and the other was carrying a large bag of filling food and walked to the queue. In front of everyone. Today is limited to Zhonglingzi. You can choose what you want to drink. There are also some bread sandwiches and the like. If you don't have time to have breakfast, you can just grab it yourself. The girl at the front chose a cup of hot orange juice and a sandwich. Seeing that the two of them were going to the back, she quickly asked, Did Zixie arrange these drinks and food? How did she know that we had already arranged it, waiting outside? Has she seen us? Yes, we don't know about the second and third questions, sister. If everyone has so many questions, we will have to wait until the year of the monkey and the horse. Don't forget to bring the straw, thank you. With a team of more than 100 people, plus the people who came to line up one after another during the period, the beverage truck was replenished again, and only then did everyone present have a hot drink in hand. Drinking hot and slightly scalding hot drinks, you also saved money on breakfast. Now everyone no longer feels tired and cold. They all took out their mobile phones, took pictures of the drinks and food on their hands, and uploaded them online. I didn't expect that the early winter in the north would be quite cold. Fortunately, with the hot drinks and buns thoughtfully prepared by Zixie, I don't feel cold at all now. Everyone rushed over spontaneously to support, and now it feels really great to receive such a response. There is actually longan and red date tea. The female fan who is in her menstrual period almost cried. This is what Zixie specially prepared for me, I won't accept any refutation. As soon as Zhonglingzi was allowed to open her eyes after putting on her eye makeup, she met Tong Yu's somewhat complicated gaze. What's wrong? Congratulations, you are on the hot search again. One fan even showed off the longan and red date tea you specially prepared for her. Zhonglingzi looked at the real hero. Yao Yao prepared it? Fang Yao waved his hands in a hurry, not wanting to take any credit, because I was on my period, and most of the people in line were girls, maybe just like me, so the drink I chose included longan and red date tea. Anyway, everyone on the internet praises you for your thoughtfulness this time. This is the first time I've seen all positive feedback. By the way, you just got a message on your phone. Zhonglingzi took the phone and clicked on Pei Xinyuan's profile picture. Sister Zixie, I told Jiao Jiao about your suspicions and she supported me. I called the police.